Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness is the first time we got a deep dive into Marvel's new established multiverse since No Way Home, and quite honestly, because of how skeptical I'd been, I was genuinely surprised and pleased with how the film turned out. For the most part. But it's obviously a bit of a mess, with it being more of a WandaVision continuation rather than a Doctor Strange sequel, along with a messy, cringy dialogue.
He has the powers of a spider.
Hence the name.
Gross.
Fortify your mind!
And let's not forget, it's 82% drop at the box office, so yeah, not really the film Marvel wanted. But with that out of the way, there are lots of genuine aspects I really liked about this film, especially the bloody, juicy elements that are so Sam Raimi. I'm especially glad they didn't hold back as much as they probably normally would have.
Nice.
I think this film is a good example of what you should and shouldn't do when you write a film starting a multiverse, which requires a huge amount of world building and expanding. So let's begin and break down the do's and don'ts of the Multiverse of Madness.
The nightmare begins.
As when it comes to world building, especially with sequels and franchises, it requires a lot of expansion with characters and concepts that you have to explain to the audience, which this film does attempt here and there. So before we go any further, I think we better establish all the good points, especially when it comes to this expansion. One of the things I did like was the concept of dreamwalking. The concept is clearly established ahead of time, and the story sets up circumstances to use it, like Wanda using it on one of her variants, and when Strange ends up using his variant from the beginning in the third act. And also the concept of dreams being events taking place in other universes. I thought that was a pretty cool concept, and also helps to set up Wanda's character and her motivations, which I thought was great. I'm talking about Wanda's motivations, they're pretty grounded and understandable, and it makes the payoff definitely good, because it goes the personal route by giving Wanda an arc, instead of your typical, empty, noisy CGI third act finale. And this film definitely showcases the chaotic aspect of the multiverse, but with all these things in mind, I ultimately felt certain aspects of the film were lacking in, and it could have definitely expanded more on them. And that's where we're heading next. Okay, now let's talk about the negatives, the bads, what you shouldn't do. Are we clear? Okay. First of all, I want to talk about hollow setups and payoffs. I feel like this is the only way to put it. So let's get into it. So like with Wanda's character, I thought it was a great motivation that they set up for her. And it definitely makes her feel three-dimensional. And it actually felt pretty grounded, you could understand it. However, all it takes is an encounter with her children from another multiverse for her to change her entire character. Again, this is better than your average empty superhero third act fight, but it still could have been more. Like, for example, maybe they could have had Wanda even kidnap her children from one of her variants, and through this she sees the pain and suffering they have to go through, and she finally has her arc. I mean, this route was great, but imagine a character going from having her strong motivations, then having this kind of little arc, all the way jump to her literally killing herself. Yeah, that's kind of a big jump. Another thing in this film, in America Chavez's memory, apparently all it took for her, quote, parents to get sucked away and lost in the multiverse was for being afraid of a bee. And don't forget, this is the first time this happened to her. The first time she really got scared like this. Seriously, if a bee was able to scare her into doing that, it should have happened way sooner and way more often. But that felt pretty hollow and honestly pretty dumb, if I'm being honest. The film states pretty clearly that Doctor Strange is the biggest threat to the multiverse, which does have some layers to it, and that every variant of him has the solution that he has to take America's powers to protect them from Wanda from getting a hold of them. Fair enough. But in the context of the movie, we've never really ever come to this conclusion, at least not in an organic or logical way. The film just kind of says that America can't control her powers, and Wanda's powerful, and if she gets a hold of her powers, she'll enslave the multiverse. It feels like these are two separate things they tried to shove together. The good thing is that it clearly establishes Wanda as a serious threat, someone who will go to the limit to get what she wants. And with Strange, he does want to protect America from Wanda, but that's about as far as it goes. It's not like Strange, or even us, care about Wanda enslaving the multiverse. We've never even met anyone from the multiverse, really, other than these guys. They were great. We don't really understand why Wanda would want the power to travel and enslave the entire multiverse when she can just control one of her variants and pretty much live a fulfilling life through it with her boys. And besides, it's not even like she wants to enslave the multiverse, she just wants a life with them. And when we get to this third act finale, Strange decides to trust in America and tells her she can control her power. Like we talked about earlier, this feels pretty hollow and emotionally empty because, just as we established, it's never like Strange was ever trying to protect America from Wanda at any cost, even at the cost of taking her powers, like we saw at the beginning of the film. So this just does not work. It feels hollow and empty. Okay, this is a bit off topic, but by far my least favorite scene in the entire film was the first real dialogue scene in the diner with Strange, Wong, and America Chavez. This scene, it felt amateur. Real amateur and misplaced. First problem was the call to action, or at least I'd call it this wannabe call to action. The truth is, the story wants to get going and wants to find a way to bring the characters right in, which, I mean, the idea is great, get the audience invested, but they did this at the cost of an exposition dump, a weak driving force to the plot, and a literal non-existent sense of danger and urgency. I get that they wanted to conceal the identity of Wanda as the true villain to subvert the audience's expectations, which they did for me, and I actually really loved that. But this made the entire setup beforehand feel pretty weak, because we don't even know who this antagonist is and what they're capable of. Why should we care about this antagonist? Why should we care about America and her story? Why should we fear this demon when we don't even know who or what it is, and has only sent monsters to do its bidding? And the fact that this entire sequence takes place in an open public diner where we're literally sitting and eating without a care in the world. Like, no. One thing I didn't like in this film was how easy things were to happen. Like when this guard person, sorry I don't know the name, finds Wong while Wanda's just doing her thing and is able to stop her temporarily. But the thing is, this scene shows just how easy it actually was to stop Wanda.
Actually, it's gonna be super easy. Barely an inconvenience.
That's right, Ryan. It was super easy. Too easy, in fact. Wanda, a supernatural being capable of witchcraft, has the ability to give herself at least some sort of protection. And you may be saying, well, hold on, she killed everyone else there, so why would she worry about something like this happening? Two things. Firstly, she actually did not kill everyone there. Exhibit A, as shown in this scene. She's threatening the lives of these injured yet still very much alive people. And Exhibit B, she, this person right here, is still very much alive and is able to destroy the book. And even if you were to argue maybe Wanda did put a spell and this person was able to take it down, well, we didn't see her doing any of that at all, now did we? How convenient that Wanda didn't kill all of them and left someone alive just enough to destroy the book that she wasn't even guarding. And thank goodness that she didn't put up some kind of shield or perimeter around her. Honestly, this scene feels like it purposely did this just to keep the story moving so that we now have to go to this third act temple space. This just feels super hollow and super convenient. We talked about the importance of expansion, but apparently this film, from what I understood and felt, had a serious lack of expansion in certain areas. Okay, so Strange's encounter with another Christine holds quite a lot of potential for possible changes and expansions in his character, like learning to let go of her and moving on. But beside the fact that this really isn't even a continuation of Strange's story, but of Wanda's, there's this weird relationship between these two throughout the movie. Apparently they're so separated that she has already chosen to marry someone else. They talk throughout the film that things were never going to work out between them. But why? We've only ever even seen them in the same movie since the first Doctor Strange, which according to this Marvel timeline, was roughly 7 to 8 years earlier. Is it like Strange has become so obsessed and devoted to his newfound responsibilities that they just move on? Which apparently they didn't, he still has feelings for her. Or perhaps that Strange had to give up a future with her to protect Earth and the balance, which apparently he didn't, because apparently he can get back to her. And this last point is more subjective, but I ultimately feel like it's going to change everything. And by that, I mean the multiverse, and how this is going to change everything going forward. So after the seemingly never-ending storyline of the MCU, with Endgame gone and past, and with the new established multiverse, it seems that Marvel will be in a tight spot from this day on. What I mean is, there are tons of different reasons why I think this is, but ultimately it comes down to what this entire film centers around, which is the multiverse. The problem with this multiverse is that now that we know there are possibly an infinite amount of universes with the same characters and storylines, none of them are special. None of them have any significance anymore. Marvel went as far as to kill off lots of characters in this movie, but only because they now have an endless supply of them. Superheroes can now be swapped or killed off and replaced, and this ultimately just takes away from everything we set up in this timeline, with characters and emotional beats and arcs and everything. No Way Home still managed to carry an emotional beat with all of these different characters. No Way Home made it work. Multiverse of Madness, in a sense, did still work in a way, but ultimately I felt like it was a bit of a disappointment and messy. And I really feel like that from now on, this may even break Marvel and its audience's investment in this world. And I guess we'll just have to sit back and see how it plays out.
It's over!
But anyways, thanks for watching and thanks for listening. And a bit off topic, but I'm not sure how many more of these video essay type videos I'll be making. So if you like what you heard today, consider sticking around and we'll see you later.